glad to have you all here. I'm joined by representatives from the American Postal Workers Union, the Iowa State Association of Letter Carriers, and constituents to discuss the growing crisis at our United States Postal Service. And over this past month, I've heard increasing concerns from Iowans about the operational challenges being made at the post office and the changes and what those could do to jeopardize the health, the financial well-being, and our democratic rights for people across our district. Countless communities in Iowa's 3rd district, like many rural areas across our country, rely heavily on the Postal Service for their needs. I hear these stories all the time, whether it's prescription drugs, Social Security payments and paychecks, utility bills, small business support, the list goes on. And we should not be jeopardizing Iowans' access to these necessities, especially during a pandemic. And now today, we have folks here who can discuss firsthand, I'm so grateful for you being here, what this crisis actually means to all of you. Before I comment on where we're at with Congress, because obviously this is a big concern of ours, and the congressional action that we'll be taking on this, I'll turn it over to those who are here to tell us their stories so we can hear more from you.
Great. First on our list, we have Kimberly Carroll, who's the president of the American Postal Workers Union, Iowa.
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to make a few brief statements, thanking everyone for their support. The public has been overwhelming and very supportive in contacting us about this issue. And it truly is the public that is driving this issue and keeping this story in the forefront. And it's because of how it affects them personally. And so we are so grateful that the public understands the magnitude of the issue and that they're responding. But it's also important for us to make sure that they know that in this time, we really need them to show their support by continuing to choose the Postal Service for their mailing and shipping needs. This is the time where that action alone says a lot. It shows confidence in what we do, and the people that I represent are dedicated to making sure that they're going to get their deliveries. And then the last thing I really wanted to make sure that everyone understood is that this has generated so much buzz and everybody is talking about this, but postal employees and people who are working for the post office really can't talk about that when they're on the job or in uniform. So I've had some folks asking questions about why we aren't more enthusiastic, but most of those questions are coming while we're working. And so we are enthusiastic and we are so deeply grateful, but please understand that we are not allowed to talk about this while we're in our post offices. So continue to provide that support and talk about this issue. And thank you so much for all of the enthusiasm.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Appreciate it. Next, we'll have Herb Copley, who is the president of the Iowa State Association of Letter Carriers.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me on. Good job, Kimberly. You said it just correctly. Kimberly represents those that work the mail and take the mail in from the customers, and then we're the ones that deliver it. And I've been working on voter registration in Iowa for over 5 years. And it was based on a class I went to in Baltimore. And we were talking about Oregon, Washington, and Colorado and how their system worked. And so I thought that was a good idea. Save our state some money and make it easier for people to vote. In today's society, it gets kind of hectic, and sometimes people forget to vote or they just don't have time. So after working with legislators for several years, I realized that the ones to go to were the county auditors who actually run the elections and had a better base for what we needed to correct. And recently we actually got a lot of things changed as far as the intelligent mail barcode, instead of having a legible postmark on the envelope. So there's so many things that the post office has done. As Kimberly said, because of the Hatch Act, I don't think people even realize how limited we are. We cannot talk about politics, partisan politics on post office property, in uniform. There's a lot of restrictions. Even if I wanted to run for a partisan position in an election, I'm not allowed to do so unless I quit my job. So we make a lot of, we do a lot of things for the public that they don't realize. And one of them is that we lose a lot of rights. So, but we love our customers. And that's the whole common sense thing here is when you look at Republicans that run the elections, like Paul Pate, he just had a record-breaking primary in June. And that shows that we're capable of delivering it. 150 million votes across the United States is not going to bust the post office's values and ability to deliver that mail. Chuck Grassley, Senator Chuck Grassley, just came out in the last couple of weeks with his support of how well we handle the mail. And he wasn't that way a year ago. So there's been a lot of things that changed. A lot of people are using the absentee ballots, and a lot of what we're hearing, just like Kimberly said, it's not true. There's a lot of stories out there. We need to get the facts straight before we have the media run off and give the facts incorrectly. So basically, that's what I've got. We love our customers. That's why we do the food drive. That's why we do MDA. That's why we watch after the elderly, watch out for crime, you name it. We love you guys. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Herb. And we'll now turn it over to John Harlan, who is a Navy veteran, a 2 tours of Vietnam veteran, and a Des Moines resident who uses the post office and to work with his Veterans Affairs prescription drugs filling. So, John, I'll turn it over to you.
First thing I want to say, thank you for the meeting, Congresswoman Axne. I want to convey to you postal people that as far as veterans are concerned, you folks hold a sacred trust. That means for many of us who are vets and spend a lot of time out of area or anywhere, we always look forward to mail call. And even while we came back to the States, we still look forward to mail call. But that's not the reason I'm on the phone here. I just want to relay something that happened to me. Each year, I go in and get my annual physical, and this has been going on here in Des Moines. I've lived in other places for 25, 30 years. In any event, I had my physical, and like with any physical, you are given your prescribed refills for your drugs. So I had heard from a friend of mine up in Michigan that they were having trouble with their ballots. So I thought, well, maybe there is a slowdown. So does this impact my prescriptions? Well, usually in Des Moines, I'm only about 3 miles from the VA where the prescriptions are filled. But I thought I'd check anyway, because it usually only like 4 days normally to get, after I filled them by phone, that they would arrive. Well, I talked to the people that do that just to see where I'm at. And they said, well, don't assume that anymore, because there's slowdowns in the post office in delivery. And by the way, it shows up because I was there last week. I should have my drugs already. So the person said, well, give them 2.5 weeks of advance after you've put in your prescription. So I immediately said, this is not right. There are what I would call, and I'm not calling here just for myself, I'm talking about the disabled, the isolated, perhaps the diabetics, the people that are wounded, the people that live in isolated areas out in the countryside, where the only person they see is their post person, their mail carrier. And it really, and I have many relatives that live every place from Red Lodge, Montana to Roundup to Red Oak and all over the state of Iowa, because we've been a lot of people in active duty for years. So in any event, and also it would really be more pertinent to any World War II vets that are left, some Korean War vets, Vietnam vets like myself, and those injured by IEDs coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So once I found this out, alarms started going off, because I happened to be there when this whole thing started, and at least the issue was brought to my attention. Not everyone gets their physical, and not everyone's been told that things are slowing down. Now, part of it could be COVID. I can't say that for sure inside the VA. But what they were saying to me is that the post office doesn't get us the quick action that we used to have. Like I say, I'm still waiting for mine. I got another week and a half. So I'm doing this to help. I've got to talk to the ombudsman up at the VA Center here in Des Moines, but I wanted to get my input in that this is what is being passed by the Des Moines VA, and so far it has been an issue that has been confirmed. Apparently, after my talk with the ombudsman yesterday, there are other cases of this. So I'm not sure if this is just whether it's a postal problem, or people have been trying to privatize the VA for a long time, and now I'm hearing rumors of trying to privatize the post office, none of which I want to see happening. If there's any way that I can help, I'll be glad to do so.
Great. Thank you so much, John.
That's what I have to say today.
Yeah, thank you so much, John. Appreciate you being on. Congresswoman Axne, I'll throw it back over to you. Thoughts on John's feelings here?
Yeah, thank you, John. My goodness, our veterans deserve much better than what you've just described. And unfortunately, John's far from alone with his concerns. We couldn't have a greater champion than Kimberly Carroll, who's been out there talking about the delays and the issues that we're facing here in Iowa and bringing this to national light. So thank you so much, Kimberly, for all you're doing. Over the past few weeks, my office has heard from countless constituents across the district who depend on the Postal Service. They're very concerned about the changes to the USPS. We've written down so many of these stories. Here's just a couple. Richard from Atlantic: as a constituent of yours, I urge you to support and vote for a bill to fund the post office until the end of the fiscal year. I get my medications through the mail. Because of the postal slowdown, I have not received my medications through the mail in a timely fashion, as so many senior citizens have. Raymond from West Des Moines said, who's a business owner: I spend thousands of dollars each year for first-class postage to get direct mail for my law practice into the hands of the customers. I represent older people, low-income individuals, minorities, actually everyone who's been sued by collectors. I know for a fact my mail is not being timely mailed throughout Iowa because I log and monitor it. And he goes on to say that if that mail isn't delivered on time, for the people that he serves, that means car payments, house payments, and credit card payments for Iowans will be late. That means they'll assess late fees, have repossessions, foreclosures, and their credit ratings will be trashed. And so this could end up in the end costing people in my district hundreds of thousands of dollars, people across our state and across this country, millions of dollars, because they rely on the Postal Service to deliver their mail for their everyday ordinary needs that we've become so accustomed to, that are so necessary for our lives. And this is why, folks, I wrote to Postmaster General DeJoy twice in the last 2 weeks, demanding answers on the operational changes like the reduced sorting capacity and the mail turnaround. Of course, he failed to account for why these changes have been put in place. I've also co-sponsored legislation that will be voted on later this week to reverse those changes and to provide billions in emergency funding to help the post office get deliveries back up and running. But amid growing proof that these delays are being done intentionally to deny citizens their right to safely vote this fall, and because of a background in state government that truly understands that leadership and decisions come from the top, I believe the first step toward repairing the Postal Service is the resignation of Louis DeJoy. And so today, I'm officially calling for Postmaster Louis DeJoy to step down and tender his resignation. While additional funding and operational changes are still necessary to solve this crisis, I have no faith that the current Postal Service leadership can be trusted to undo the damage. Intentionally obstructing the right to vote is already illegal, but disenfranchising Iowans in a way that puts their health and security of my constituents at risk is abhorrent and unacceptable. I won't stand for it. He needs to resign. He isn't doing our district, this state, or this country any favors, and he's not doing the job that he was put in place to do.
Okay, thank you, Congresswoman Axne. At this point, we'll open it up to questions. I know we have a number of folks from the various members of the media on the phone.
If you're just throwing it open, I'll ask Congresswoman. I don't know if you saw the. Thanks for doing this. The Postmaster General, Joe Morton with the World Herald. The Postmaster General just put out a statement saying they're suspending these operational changes until after the election, sort of out of an abundance of caution or to avoid even the appearance of anything improper. Does that do anything to alter your thinking on his need to step down, or just any reaction to that move? To suspend the operational changes they're making?
Well, I'm glad to see that he's put that out. And obviously folks like Kimberly, the people on this call, have made an impression that this is absolutely the wrong thing to do. But honestly, no. This is a guy who, in addition to implementing these changes so rapidly after him being appointed to this position, has come in and has shown no appreciation for the Postal Service. Not to mention, there's other underlying ethical issues that he possibly has in place with, with contracts where he has ownership of some companies related to the USPS. This is another example of this administration putting in big supporters of the president into positions of power where they have no experience. He's the first Postmaster General to not even come up through the Postal Service. I can tell you there's not one person who works with the Postal Service here right now that wouldn't say how important it is to have somebody who understands how it works and the intricacies of it, all the way down to the letter carrier, up to the sorting, and to the administration. So as much as I appreciate that, it's a day late and a dollar short. Just like so many things that this administration is doing, once they make a change that they intended on implementing and they see the public pushback, they pull back. But that isn't the right leader that we should have. We should have a leader who never made that decision to begin with. We should have a leader that's going after trying to help out with shoring up the Postal Service by eliminating the provision that the Postal Service, as the only government agency, has to pre-fund their retirement pensions. This is the type of thing that he should be looking at and make sure that the funding is available. So I don't trust that he's got the best interests of the American people in mind, or of the 3rd District of Iowa.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time, Congresswoman. This is Nick Coltrane with the Register. You mentioned that there was proof that Postmaster General is that the delays are being done intentionally to deny citizens their right to safely vote. What proof specifically are you referring to, ma'am?
Well, well, first of all, I don't think I said that there's proof, but
growing proof. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So listen, the president has actually come out and said that, and we have mounting evidence within the folks who are working closely with the USPS and in Congress that these things are being done intentionally, and so I firmly believe that we've got to address this issue. It was brought up earlier, I think it was by Herb, who mentioned about Secretary Pate putting out, having a great primary because of the absentee ballot requests and sending those out to everybody. What's happening is we're showing that being proactive and getting people the right to vote is influencing Republican decision making, and this is another example of that.
Hi, Congressman Dan Bach with the Iowa Capitol Dispatch here. I'm wondering about how you anticipate these, if these postal slowdowns are going to affect your own race coming up in November. Is that a concern that you have?
You know, I do this job for the constituents of the people here in the 3rd District of Iowa. It's never about where there's some opportunity for me. I want a fair election because we live in a republic and we should be supporting a democracy. And so fair elections come with every single person being able to cast a ballot and do so in a safe and effective way so that their voice is heard. That's my #1 priority. My first priority is to protect the people in my district and give them opportunity for growth and opportunity for their family's success. Secondly, it's to protect this country and the Constitution and making sure that every single person has a right to vote and their vote is counted is a #1 priority for me. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, that across this country, we've got to stand up and do the right thing, and that means protecting our mail service.
I have time for one more question if there's someone else. Otherwise, we will wrap up.
This is Mark Sarcone, postal worker. Thank you, Congresswoman Axne, for doing this. We really appreciate all your support. I put it in the chat here too to Katie, but I just wanted to know what's the number of House members that are calling for the PMG's resignation? Do you know?
At this point, I'm not exactly sure on who exactly is calling for his resignation. You know, certainly well over 150 letters requesting that a lot of these changes don't occur. So I think that we'll see a growing voice in requesting that because leadership does start at the top.
Okay, so right now it's just you, and then there's others that you anticipate will be joining?
That's what I hope for.
Okay, all right.
We can follow up with you on that too.
Okay, thanks, Katie.
No problem.
You bet.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for everyone joining.
Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who's here as part of our Postal Service. We're very grateful for all that you do, and thank you for helping me hold government accountable. It's every citizen's job to make sure that that happens. Stay safe.